Sci-Fi.
Hey everybody, welcome to Real Life Sci-Fi with Wade and Willie. I'm Wade.
I'm Willie.
This is a podcast about the paranormal and contemporary mythology. Join us on patreon.com/reallifesci-fi for access to 2 bonus episodes a week, video feeds, and more. RealLifeSciFi.show for all of our links and stuff. I went to therapy today for the first time ever, and the guy was like, yeah, I guess because they're making people wear masks and stuff. And the guy was like, it's in the water now. It's like in the water. COVID is in the water supply. But it's not that bad. It's like a cold or something. Anyway.
Oh, boy.
Watch out. Let's welcome aboard the SSRLSF. It's our good friend, Sevan Najarian.
Hello.
So we need to talk about Mars. Whitest Kids. It's just called Mars.
It's just called Mars.
But it's the Whitest Kids movie that you directed and your company animated and produced. It was at Tribeca.
Yeah, that was fun. We had like a red carpet event, and there was like press there, and we had like Getty images to brag about now.
Yeah, I know. That's cool. Did you meet who's the Italian mobster that runs it?
Oh,
Francis
I
Ford
don't know.
Coppola?
The Italian mobster. De Niro?
Yeah, De Niro.
Wait, De Niro runs Tribeca? I didn't know that.
He started it, yeah.
Oh.
There was like this big De Niro con thing that happened after we left, but I didn't stick around past the screenings.
I love that I forgot De Niro's name. That's how my day's going.
Yeah, De Niro con. I did run into Silvio from Sopranos.
Nice.
Which one was Silvio? Is that Van Sant?
No, it's
the gray one, the one with the like gray swooshes on the side of his head. Hey Tony, hey, that could be any of them.
No, that's not. No, it's the other guy. It's the guy with the big lips and the sad face, the droopy lips.
Isn't that the Van Sant guy? He's like a guitar player, right?
Maybe. I think he was there with his band or something.
Bruce Springsteen. That's what he played for. He played with Bruce Springsteen.
I thought that he died.
Oh,
he didn't die.
No, he's alive.
That's why people freak out when they saw him.
Yeah, no, he's like more than Sopranos. He's like,
yeah.
He was like a weird stunt cast for Sopranos.
Yeah, I ran into him.
That's cool. Is it cool? Did you talk to him?
No, I'm not. I don't do that stuff.
I know, me neither.
Oh, I don't get high on celebrity.
I don't either, but I just mean like if you're in the elevator or something, like, what's up, man? And then
I've done that before, but
you form like a friendship, and it's weird. Now you're just friends with this guy who used to play with Springsteen.
now that we're friends, do you mind taking a picture of me? And he's not even in it. Hey, man, he took this picture of me.
Yeah, I don't like any of that stuff, so I just don't do it.
I don't
just
like
whisper
it
and side eye and whisper to people around me. Hey, you know who that is?
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I do.
I usually do like a knowing like nod or hello, hey, what's up? You know, just like to acknowledge, but try not to. But then I almost geek out then all after that.
Oh, and then somebody sent me this Mars cap. They knitted it.
What does that say? GFYDL?
It's an acronym for Go Fuck Yourself Doll Liquor. It's just the thing. It's something that the fans say to each other.
Well, it's in the movie, right?
It's a fan greeting. But yeah, but the fans don't know it. So if any fans are watching, we're not going to spoil that part for you. But
oh, okay. So I didn't realize that was like, so that's fan service? That's why it's in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. It was actually written in the movie. It was written and then referred to by the guys a bunch of times. We're talking about the name Doll Liquor. Where the words Doll Liquor comes from.
Yeah.
They wrote it like 12 years ago. So they've just been calling their fans Doll Liquor for a very long time.
And they never knew until now?
They don't know. They've never read the script. Yeah, they haven't seen the movie yet. So,
well, but I just assumed they did punch-ups on the script in the last 12 years, you know?
I think
so I didn't know.
Yeah, they just call each other Doll Liquors, and it's fun.
That's funny, dude.
I love it. Really, and I think it's, if you say Doll Liquor, you're supposed to say go fuck yourself, or else you're not a true initiate.
Now we've spoiled it for all of the Whitest Kids we spoiled it for the Whitest Kids fans, because
if you want to infiltrate the fans, we didn't spoil it.
Yeah. Hey, I've been a fan for a long time.
Go fuck yourself. Right? I did it right?
All right. Let's do the WoW scale, huh?
Wow scale.
Are you a Wade or are you a Willie?
Well, the WoW scale stands for Wade or Willie. It's a 5-question quiz. At the end of the quiz, I'll give you a score anywhere between 0 and 5. If you're more of a 0, you're more of a Wade. If you're more of a 5, you're more of a Willie. Are you ready to be Wade on the WoW scale?
Yeah.
All right, first question, three-parter. Do you believe in aliens? If so, have they visited Earth? If so, have they visited Earth in the last 300 years?
Yes, believe in aliens. No, they haven't visited Earth.
You think UAPs are military or?
Well, my only caveat is that I'm starting to become more of a simulationist, so I don't even think aliens even matter.
Dude,
Just
I don't
another
think
program?
anything matters.
Yeah.
I'm becoming like agnostic to caring.
If you are turning into a simulation theorist or whatever, simulationist, whatever, most paranormal things can be real. So, like, is there a way to crack the simulation by following those things?
But why would those be real? Okay, I mean, I don't want to get into this, but
I
like,
know.
if it's a simulation and they're just like fucking with us, then why would those things be real? You're saying that the aliens infiltrated a simulation and they're flying around in a simulation. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying on the larger scheme of things, aliens are like the small scheme, like the small fry.
I know.
If we're in a simulation, there's way more crazy problems that we are, in my head anyway, to have to contend with, questions I want answers for.
See, what throws me off is if there's anything to simulation theory and somebody doesn't believe in a ghost and they see a ghost, is this something that only they see? And so like, or is it everyone around sees it? So you know what I mean? So like, to me, it's like maybe if you believe in something, it allows the code to,
Like you're manifesting it because you believe it.
Simulation manifesting.
That's why I believe in the simulation, because I don't believe in manifesting, and the only reason that it could be is if it is a simulate, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
that's why the secret works for everybody. Question 2, ghosts.
Oh shit! In a simulation world, yes.
So this is
But I haven't
interesting
seen
because
any.
now we have this layer of all of your answers are coming from simulation.
Yeah, if we're in a simulation, absolutely. But I haven't seen one.
Right. You don't have any ghost stories or anything.
No, I hear a lot of ghost stories people believe them. So I don't know.
Have either of you guys played with the Ouija board?
Sure.
I had one for a while.
Have you ever experienced anything paranormal or weird? Yeah, me
No.
neither.
No.
Nothing like that. And I got my eyes wide open. I want the world to fall apart in a weird, unscientific way.
Dude, me and you, man. Why have we never talked about this? We got the same fucking viewpoints on this shit. Yeah, when I did a Ouija board, it was like, it was nonsense. It was the whole thing of like, I think you're moving it. I think you are. And then the letters that it spelled was just gibberish. It was nothing. And so we were like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. No.
Not even in a simulation, Bigfoot can't.
There's just not enough. I don't there's less evidence for Bigfoot than there are for ghosts.
Illuminati. Do you believe in the Illuminati?
Yes.
What do you think they are? It's a weird question because I say Illuminati, but then I'm also like, I don't mean like literally.
What is an Illuminati?
Yeah, I guess.
I think they were a very powerful force in the past, but I don't think they are that much anymore. I think there's other groups that are more powerful than them that push buttons and pull levers. But I think they have offshoots, and I think that was just the original name. But like how the Masons used to be really powerful, but now like they're whatever.
Right.
It's the same.
Like
what
are the bankers? You know.
Yeah, the Rockefellers. Or
whatever the bankers are, that's the new power.
Yeah, I think it exists, but it's like it's not what we think anymore. I think we attribute too much power to it.
This will be interesting. The multiverse. Do you believe in the multiverse?
Yeah.
How do you rectify that with
the
simulation?
So this could be a simulation. There could be a parallel simulation next to us. Yeah, it can happen.
Right.
So in the world of simulation meeting code, the parallel universes would just be every yes and no combination, right? So like they could all exist on the same layer.
Rick and Morty pretty much illustrated it the best, right? They just went into all the simulations. Each world that they created the simulation of their own, and then they kept creating further and further down.
Yeah. Did you watch Dark Matter? You watch Dark Matter?
I haven't seen that.
They got it going on. I just watched this Synchronicity movie. It's real bad from 2016. I just watched that last night. They're talking about it. I don't believe in any of these things.
Whoa, really?
I don't believe in the multiverse.
Except simulation.
Yeah, I believe in simulation. I guess I
don't.
don't believe in the multiverse.
I think the multiverse makes the most sense.
I would say like a 3.5.
I think I am climbing in my scale.
I think we all are. You know, as we get older, we all become a little bit more of a Willy.
Not that I was wise when I was young. I'm just older than everyone else.
Time to Willy up.
All right, Willy, hit us with the topic.
Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi, Atlantis. New information. Sevan is back. Last time he was on, we talked about Atlantis. He's here to talk about this new information. If you didn't believe in the Atlantean civilization before, maybe you will now. Let's get into this new information and what it means tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi.
What is the new information?
Sure, there's a documentary that's out there. It's called
The Atlantis Puzzle.
I saw it on
places.
Prime. It's pretty cheap.
Prime, yeah.
It's half price on Prime, I think. But Sevan watched this thing too, and he's back because he watched it and wants to talk about it. But there's this independent researcher who's pretty intelligent. His name is George Sarantitis. He basically looked at the two documents because the only information we have of Atlantis is from Plato, and he was looking at Critias and Timaeus. That's it.
Yeah.
I knew it rhymed like some lame cats.
The two books he wrote, yeah. Plato.
That's the only information we have on the Atlanteans, basically. And he's saying that, well, they kind of translated a bunch of stuff wrong. So he spent a couple of years retranslating both books to find out what Plato was really saying.
Yeah, I think that's a huge development. He retranslated Plato's works to find out what he really meant by what he said about Atlantis and where it was. So one of the biggest revelations is there's two words that they retranslated that changes the whole theory. And one of those words is ocean. The way they translated it to ocean used to be thought of as that it existed east of the Atlantic Ocean. That's why they named it Atlantis or whatever. Or that's why it was named Atlantis. The new translation he's claiming is that it just means body of water or whatever. So you can almost say that it was to the east of any body of water in Europe, Africa area.
A lot of people
That doesn't sound helpful. That sounds less helpful.
But everyone's looking for Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's not there.
Well,
so it's pretty cool.
So other amateur archaeologists are theorizing that that proves even more that the last episode I was on, when we talked about that big Eye of Africa structure. Do you remember that, Wade?
no.
Remember there's this big like concentric rings of mountains and hills that exactly describes how the capital city of Atlantis was laid out.
Okay.
They didn't even know about it. It's in the middle of the deepest desert in Africa, on the west side of Africa. They never even found it till some astronauts were floating over the Earth, and I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? Looks like an eye. It's the first time we've seen it in modern history.
Right. Did I make a joke about Hunger Games? Because it just looks like Hunger Games.
Yeah, you did.
Did I?
Yeah, you did make the Hunger Games joke.
I keep calling it the Richat Structure, and they kept saying Richat, but it's one of those two.
Yeah, Richat Structure. But that's nothing new. That's what we talked about last time. That's what we convinced us. Like, I think I walked away that episode thinking like this is like the most convincing evidence to show that Atlantis might have existed. And some of the holes I was poking into it back then, I feel like are not really valid now because the way that the documentary, by the way, is really not produced well. It's like, again, does the thing that I hate about documentaries is the director puts himself in the documentary.
The director is the main character.
He's like the narrator, main character. He does that thing where he like walks towards the camera and says a thing, and then it cuts to another interview.
Every shot is overexposed and the color balance is off.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the graphics are super minimal, and they keep cutting back to the same graphics over and over and over again. And it's like really hard to understand. But
is he American?
I think he is. Richard Kelly, is that his name?
I mean, he was wearing a plain collared shirt with like jeans. So
he doesn't
he must
look
be American.
British. I was like, yeah, it seems like that's like a British kind of documentary thing.
It
right?
does.
Like,
I mean, it's kind of on the level of if there was no money in Ancient Apocalypse, that documentary, we talked about that, or Aaron was a guest to talk about that one with Graham
Hancock. Yeah, I love that.
Hancock.
Love that.
It's on the vein of that, actually. It's like, in fact, it's funny because the last time I talked about Atlantis on this show, I had gone to Contact in the Desert and seen a bunch of people talking about Atlantis and like ancient cities and burial grounds and stuff like that. And Gobekli Tepe,
yeah.
And all that stuff. So like I feel like I have a little bit more of an idea of like what's going on with Atlantis and just like ancient civilizations and how it works. And so another thing that they mistranslated or they retranslated was the word sunk.
Yes.
And instead of sunk, it could have been buried.
They said
covered. covered.
The story was it sunk in a day.
It seems pretty convenient.
And now they're
that
saying
the two words
it
that
was
they,
sunken or it's covered.
the two words that they retranslated were ocean and sunk. It's a little convenient.
But I mean, this documentary claims that everybody was following George's work to use the Richat structure, but I don't know. People found it in different ways. But what I like about it is they found the Richat structure from going through Plato's work, not from looking around for it, and followed his directions a little more. The retranslation led them to this, and it's pretty amazing. So Africa used to be really green and used to have a lot of waterways, and basically the west side of Africa was almost its own continent, all these rivers and extra seas in the middle, and even today in some of those areas there's still crocodiles in the middle of the desert because the waterways came all the way from where crocodiles come from.
Yeah, they're saying like the monsoon season in Africa usually stays in the center of Africa. Right now it is. Back in the day, 10,000 years ago, that monsoon season was way further north. So all the rain dropped on the Sahara Desert before it was the Sahara Desert. So everything there was lush and full of rivers, and a lot of it spilled out into the Mediterranean. Imagine like way more water in the Sahara Desert filling up all these spaces. And last time we talked about how it looks like all these rivers had like trickled down, all the geographic patterns that you could see that it used to have a ton of water, like big mudslides kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine just way more water, a lot of waterways, and then a nation that's so far advanced that they command that waterway and everybody's afraid of them and they war against everybody, and their empire spreads slowly because they command the waterways.
So hang on. That's what I wanted to ask. What is the obsession with Atlantis? Like, it's because they were more advanced than everybody?
Well, they were just an empire that was growing, just like the Persian Empire. They were growing and threatening their neighbors, and because they had an organization of rivers, they became like a kind of a superpower, like how the Sumerians were really highly feared because they're the only ones with boats.
You know how this is the worst parallel you'll ever hear. Boba Fett was really one of the most loved characters after Empire Strikes Back, but he fucking didn't do anything in it.
Yeah, just because he was the coolest toy.
So Plato overheard this story from his uncle when he was talking to some high priests about Atlantis. And so here he is writing these books, and he kind of mentions Atlantis. And then within these two books, like, holy shit, man, he's talking about an ancient civilization that is more advanced than they were at the time. He talked about the walls using tons of different metals and covered in copper and all kinds of stuff. And the biggest problem with anything that he said in those books is there's no evidence of anything. They haven't found Atlantis. They haven't found big boats anywhere. They haven't found any evidence to support an ancient civilization being technologically advanced and having this control of the waterways. And so now they're starting to find stuff. The problem with a boat is you make a boat out of wood, it won't last 1,000 years. It'll deteriorate.
Unless it's covered in mud.
They did find one. Yeah, that's the whole thing. They found this boat.
Oh, to preserve it? I thought you meant they were covering their boats in mud. I was like, well, what does it matter if it lasts 1,000 years? I forgot you were talking about archaeology.
And sci-fi and fantasy really took over our mythology of Atlantis, and so people in their own minds can go off the charts as to what.
Well, but okay, I guess my whole thing is like, what is the obsession with it though? Like, why are people so fixated on Atlantis? Because like we know that societies come and go, right? But is it just that it was such a big one that there should be more evidence of it? And that's why people were curious about it?
I think it's a cautionary tale. Or the people that believe that they were creating like crystals and stuff and like they went too far. It's kind of an analogy to like inventing the atomic bomb and like destroying ourselves. I think that's why it kind of resonates with people.
Okay.
A lot of people were searching for this discovery because it rewrites everyone's history books.
It's just so long ago though that it's like ancient history, so it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you know what I mean? I just don't understand the significance of it.
This is the part of the show that you ask the question, so what, who cares, in a different way that you normally do.
I guess, but it is just curious that people are so into this. I don't know.
I mean, it's part of the Marvel universe now, right?
Yeah, and it's also part of the DC universe because
what is it in Marvel?
Isn't Aquaman Marvel?
No, he's DC, but
okay.
Marvel also has
I don't care
a main character that hasn't been in the movies yet that He's in like the old comics and stuff from Atlantis. They're the ones that found Captain America frozen in the water.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are you saying, that like the documentary reaffirms the Africa?
The Eye of Africa. Yeah, I think it reaffirms that that's the location because it's pretty convenient. It looks like it should be there. But it also kind of argues the Green Sahara theory is pretty compelling, and I'd like to read more about that.
Yeah,
Wait,
because
hang on. We started talking about it being buried, and I feel like maybe we didn't get to why that was significant. I mean, I know it's significant because now it's on land or anything, but like how do you bury something in a day?
Oh, well, it seems crazy to get swallowed by water in a day. So that's not even possible
for
physically.
a continent,
So for a whole continent to be underwater in a day, that's not possible. It's just impossible to do. But it makes more sense to have been covered with, like, say a tsunami comes in and it brings all the dirt and refuse and things from the other cities over and all the trees and everything, and they're just deposits on top of your city. That you could say was covered by water and, covered over by dirt and everything, basically destroyed.
How close to the ocean is that
Richat Structure.
Well, a lot of
It's
people
actually
say
not that
Ricotta,
close. It's right in the middle of Africa.
is it really?
in the middle of the west side, but there were other seas back then. They had the rivers, the waterways.
Right.
The thing is,
Right.
it was said to have, I know the last episode, Willie was describing how in the capital city there was like a salt spring and also a freshwater spring or something like that. And I think that just suggests that there was salt water coming up to the city walls, but then there was fresh water all around it. Like a bunch of rivers kind of emptied into this area that was emptying into the Mediterranean Sea at the time when the rivers were higher. So I think it had access to the ocean, but the tsunamis didn't come from the ocean. The tsunamis might have come from the rivers that were inside the rings.
That can happen?
Yeah, it can happen because, I mean, this is another thing I didn't know about much before, but now I understand 13,000 years ago, there was an event called the Younger Dryas, and that we kind of covered with, what's his name?
Yeah, with the Graham Hancock
stuff. And so that is also something that a lot of archaeologists don't agree on. I think a lot of amateur ones are saying it makes sense and it's obvious, but they're not getting any kind of traction in the archaeology world. But I kind of understand it as like that was just like a comet or a solar flare or something that hit the earth, and it was like kind of created just a lot of mayhem at the time, and like the only real civilization on earth was Atlantis, and so Atlantis was just like rocked back and forth, and all the tsunamis that around their rivers and lakes and everything that was surrounding them destroyed a lot of their capital city. And so they've told that story over millennia, and Egypt, who's probably just a colony of Atlantis just across the way, has the only records of what happened because it's part of their past, part of their ancestors' past.
Have people like done digs on this Richat structure? Why not?
It really is in the middle of the desert. So there's no airport there. You have to drive hundreds of miles of desert sand. And Jimmy Corsetti, the guy from Bright Insight. Oh, I'm getting mixed up. There was another guy who tried to go to the Richat structure. And to get to it, you have to hire someone who knows how to drive there. So they're driving the desert. And their footage, they're driving through people fighting with guns. There was a big civil war going on. And so like there's so much lawlessness, people will just, hold you up a gunpoint and take your shit.
Right.
If you get there, you don't have any resources to do any work because you can't fly a helicopter for like 300 miles and you can't land a plane in the desert. So you're kind of fucked. You have to drive in.
They've done some tests though. They've done like forgot what they said in the documentary.
Some scientists went out there in the 70s, and then this guy George.
But then this guy brought a team out there and surveyed it. So it was something I was complaining about last time, actually, because on the last documentary they surveyed it using Google Maps, and I was like talking about how inaccurate that was. And so like this documentary, they actually went out there with equipment and surveyed it.
What did they find? Anything?
They found freshwater fossils in the area.
Really?
And they did find obsidian tools. And
what?
They found some remains of some structures too, but they were smaller structures than they were hoping for, I think. And then they go on to explain away a lot of the things that they're like, well, the description says this and this could have been the reason why that's not accurate anymore. And like they explain a lot of the explanations that don't line up with this place. to like fit their theory, I think, in a little way, in a small way.
So case closed, right? I mean, it sounds.
No, because I think the description was like specifically like lining the walls with what
Copper
and silver
Yeah.
metals or whatever, or like all that stuff. There's no evidence of that kind of metal work there at all.
and so here's the crazy thing. This is so old that, like, you know, you could see a foundation for a building and not really know what it looked like or whatever. But this is what happened to the pyramids, is that they've had civilizations on top of civilizations move in, and then they don't know what these things are. People just start taking the shit for themselves. So
Or they bury it and build on top. That happens a lot.
Yeah, a lot of ancient civilizations, these sacred sites might have some kind of energy there, so they build their sacred site on top of it. That happens a lot. But like most of the limestone that covered the pyramids, that shit just got mined. They treated it like a quarry and just built other stuff with it. And so the whole outer casing stuff that fell off is I'm sure if there was copper or silver, this place was probably flooded for hundreds of years. It sounds like, and people might have come in and just taken everything.
I mean, the documentary really downplayed like the civilization being so advanced too, because they're like, it really couldn't have been that advanced back then. What the Egyptians were assuming, and when they flourished their writings about it, they've made it seem like they were way more advanced than they actually were. But they at that time they probably had like big huts, and like they were like had a big army of people with bow and arrows and boats, you know, and like something simpler. That's why you don't see the remnants of an advanced civilization there, even though nobody's dug anything.
Yeah,
I think if you just dig, like, I just imagine like a couple miles of just dust sitting on top of the site.
Picture how much sand was covering the Sphinx. You know what I mean? Like, just that much. Just go that deep.
Yeah, I think it's no water to be found, so it's just kind of filled up with dust, and all that stuff came from the ocean. That used to be an ocean, so it was like now it's just dust.
And they also made the comparison to, like, you know, Mongolia. It's like the Mongoloids were a huge civilization, and they were nomadic. You know, sure they had
Mongoloids,
Mongols,
Mongols.
Mongoloid is something different.
Mongoloid something else.
You know what? When I heard Mongols, I picture the Mongols, the California motorcycle gang. So I'm like, oh, it's not Mongols.
Anyway, what were you saying about the Mongols?
So they, you know, they're saying that, like, yeah, they might have been a big advanced society, but they conquered so many places. Maybe they were nomadic also, in a way that they were warriors that could take over places and keep moving, because there is a history of the Atlanteans taking over a lot of civilizations. So here's one other cool thing that they pointed out, was that there's no evidence of the boats from the area, you know, and there's no evidence of them trading and being seafaring civilizations, but they're finding that now. Like, they're finding wheat that doesn't have any ancestors in that area that they used to eat with and stuff. So they're like proving that these guys were moving around through water and trading.
It sounds like this is it.
Do you believe in Atlantis at all, Wade? I know you.
I got no reason not to. I mean, listen, I've never thought of it. I've never once been like, what's up with Atlantis? Like, I don't, it's just like not something. I think, like, growing up, I just thought it was like a completely fictitious place, right? And then I don't know, you hear more and more about it. I'm open to it being a real place.
And also, you know, they don't teach all these things about it. So you've probably seen more mythological things than the descriptions of, you know, it was about 40 kilometers across the capital city. It was like the capital city was one of 10 kingdoms in that area. So, like, and they had a navy of like 1,200 ships, like 10,000 years ago.
Million-man army or something.
You guys mentioned a boat covered in mud. What, did they find one, or are you talking about some other boat?
They found a small boat, ancient boat that was in the middle of the Sahara, just like buried under a bunch of mud. So, or like clay that actually was preserved it because it prevented oxygen from getting to it, so it didn't disintegrate. And so it proves that why would there be a boat in the middle of a desert?
Well, you know, you put it on your trailer and you go back to the suburbs until you're ready to go to the lake again.
When are we going back to the ocean, Dad?
I mean, but yeah, this all jives with like the pyramids having running water and stuff like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's all just curiosity, I guess. It's all just like what a different world that would have been.
I think science fiction has blown this whole thing out of proportion.
Sure.
It really has, because like it even started back in the 60s when, or like the 50s when sci-fi book novels were being written. It's just like a lot of them just popped up all of a sudden and just became a fascination. So
Lasers.
I think beyond that, it is kind of just a boring story of how there was a civilization, the hunter-gatherer situation that traded and like farmed. They did farm, actually. They farmed and traded
irrigation and
well before, and that was destroyed in a tragic one night accident. But like it aligns with the biblical story of Noah and the flood and stuff like that. So for me growing up, I was like fascinated by the flood stories because it's like a whole nother world with different like physics back then.
Yeah,
Before the flood, there was
yeah.
like in my mind growing up, there's like different physics and different laws of like nature and stuff. So to me, that's fascinating because that's where the gods lived. You know, that's where the dinosaurs lived, and that's where you know, magic probably happened. You know, like that in a good imagination, and I think that's why it captured mine. But I think for a lot of people, an underwater kingdom is kind of cool. It's a cool idea.
I know, and it's kind of disappointing now that it's not underwater at all. It's just
it would never
in the
was
middle
underwater.
of Africa.
Yeah.
Right, it never was. So it's like completely misbuilt.
And it just got covered in mud, like Pompeii almost.
I think that's why I'm asking that question, because it takes out all of the kind of like magic. Now it's just a place, you know. Now it's just an old place.
But I don't know how far so advanced they were too. I mean, I think the advancement they're talking about is that they were farmers versus everybody else not being farmers.
Right.
Yeah, I believed in it before, but I believe in it more now. And I would like them to get a bunch of money to go fucking look at this place, because they may find some cool shit. And to know that this area had water back then, to me, it's all about the mystery of the pyramids. If you could prove that there was running water and the Nile was right there, which I think it was, and I mean, like, it just kind of redefines what that was, because
you're hoping that it would then prove completely renewable energy and stuff like that, right? Like that's what you want. You want to live in Tesla's world.
None of that. There's no new info for that stuff, though.
No, but
I know
if they could prove the water, yeah, Wade's right. If they could prove the water in that area, it could lead to them finding the healing cymatics of the pyramids or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
some
the
kind
healing
of
cymatics.
So the coolest thing about this documentary, what they did was this guy who retranslated everything basically said, hey, the second book that Plato wrote just ends mid-sentence.
Yeah.
So people just thought that, you know, maybe, I don't know, something happened. He didn't finish the book.
Writer's block happens to all of us, man.
And they're trying to say that, like, well, you know what? Plato would only write something that he would want you to investigate. And so it kind of like, they're saying it calls you to go to the Odyssey and basically that was an on purpose thing to make you look at why he did that.
Yeah, he wrote the books to initiate people into his thinking, so they become initiates when they crack the code to his writings, and his writings basically teach you to be aware of the story circle.
And
right.
also
it does.
to like, basically it's a power it's a story of power corrupting and having checks and balances on your rulers, your leaders.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
But
Like
that's
how
kind of
unsustainable
just like,
it is to have an army, basically.
Yeah, but like the people who come into power never care about that because they're the ones in power. They don't care. America's dead, man. It's done.
This is the birth of democracy we're talking about. Plato was talking about the birth of democracy.
Well, no, but I'm just saying the lessons that he's trying to teach, not one civilization has followed
from it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he would be rolling in his grave if he saw the outcome of democracy.
What the guy did was he looked at every single like English translation and every Greek translation, modern versions of those books out there, and like compared and contrasted. And there was like, hold on, there's like a lot of different translations. Like there were kind of a spectrum of translations. And so he's like, that tells me that the original text was probably mistranslated or untranslatable at the time, or not translated with the right context of the time period. because words change meanings over time, and sometimes they're
Yeah.
one word for a lot of things, or a lot of words for one thing, and vice versa. Sometimes they change. So
every hunter of Atlantis had to go through the Pillars of Hercules, and he's like, well, this thing was different within different writings.
Yeah, so yeah, that's another thing that we didn't talk about at all, is the Pillars of Hercules. I think the translation part is interesting because the Jehovah's Witnesses did the exact same thing. They took like the modern translations of some of those Bibles, like the Hebrew translation of the Greek scriptures, which is a weird way to go, and like other things, just to like make their own scripture, just to well, this one doesn't talk about
Solidify their beliefs,
Jesus being God, so there must be a
You can
mistranslation.
nudge it. Just
Yeah,
using the
yeah.
words, you can nudge it a little bit to what
Yeah,
you
like
want.
this word that was used for God didn't actually mean God back then if you used it with this
Right.
word, unless
Yeah.
unless you use it with the word the, it's not, they're not talking about Almighty God, those kinds of distinctions that the Jehovah's Witnesses
Mhm.
make. I think a lot of that stuff is I was reminded about with this, because I'm like, it's not talking about an ocean, it's talking about a pelagos, which is like an island full of a sea full of islands, basically.
What do you
And
call
that's
the
usually translated as ocean or sea. So I think the general population just thought, oh, it should be somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean.
Is there a religion out there that is basically grammar Nazi? Is that
Oh,
what
I
yeah.
think the
Jehovah's Witness
Catholic aren't the
yeah.
Catholics?
Oh,
Well, they changed the meanings of a lot of those stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it's up to them, is what I mean.
but and then the Pillars of Heracles. What is it? East of the Pillars of Heracles is where you'll find Atlantis or something like
Is
that.
the Pillars of Hercules an actual place?
well, everyone has attributed it to the Strait of Gibraltar, which is like basically saying that like
That's popular opinion, is that it's
yeah. I think it's like just two big mountains that you have to get out to into the open ocean. But now that we know that it's not the ocean and it doesn't have to be the Strait of Gibraltar, they've moved it. What did you think it was, Sevan?
I always picture in Game of Thrones when you go to Pentos and you see the big guy, like with his feet, like and his one foot is on one continent and the other foot is on the other continent. That's how I picture the Pillars of Heracles. But
I always pictured it as the what is that?
Never Ending Story.
Never Ending Story. I always picture the Never Ending Story with the two wings with the boobs statues.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
That's across there.
Well, but across history, a lot of places had their own Pillars of Heracles, and that was more of a euphemism or a metaphor for the gates between the inside world and the outside world. For instance, outside of Atlantis is Asia and Europe. So beyond the Pillars of Heracles, you'll find the outside world, or vice versa. You'll find Atlantis beyond the pillars. And so there are a lot of places were attributed to that, like every little strait in every little sea, like the Black Sea emptying out to the Aegean Sea has a strait. And that was a couple of Pillars of Heracles is over there that were attributed to that. So it's kind of just like a metaphor for like you're inside or you're outside. Like you're inside where it's safe, where the Navy is, and we can protect you. And then outside there in the vast ocean of chaos, we can't protect you.
Right, which means it's completely worthless unless you are the same as the guy writing it and know exactly what he's talking about, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So that it just gives you the opportunity as a person that wants to find Atlantis to put the Pillars of Heracles anywhere you want, which is pretty convenient for this documentary. And then I feel like a lot of people don't study the Green Sahara stuff. I don't know much about it, but I kind of want to look into it. I feel like the Green Sahara thing is not an accepted theory at all, right?
Fringe theorists bringing up that like the Younger Dryas and those floods definitely happened, but mainstream archaeology does not think that there was any sort of advanced societies back then. And so that's the whole thing, is when you try to bring up something, no one's going to even listen to anything. And so all this stuff is like concrete proof that this was Atlantis, and mainstream archaeology is still probably not even batting an eye at it.
Yeah.
Just go look at it. Well, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for?
Does this documentary, does it feel more like a Gaia TV thing?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, personally,
a what?
Gaia TV, just like Fringe. Like I believe it, but I just don't think most people do. Most people will. And like
it's on Prime. So I mean, I guess they just have good distributors for it.
Can't you put anything on Prime? Isn't Prime? It's Amazon. You can self-publish a documentary on Amazon, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, you
can you?
can't. They basically, after the pandemic, things changed, but it used to be very easy for anybody. Now you have to kind of go through some loopholes. But yeah, you can put your own movie on there, whatever. But you probably won't make any money and you lose distribution because
Right.
it's out there. But you publish something. But
So wait,
yeah.
go back to the beginning. Plato was hanging out and he overheard his father
his
speaking of
like
this.
uncle Solon, he was talking to
Okay.
some high priests of Egypt, and these high priests of Egypt were telling him about Atlantis, and so he just recorded all this information.
And told Plato, and Plato wrote it down in his 2 books that were meant to teach his initiates how to think like him. And they're written in a way where it's kind of just like a trick on you. So I don't know
How do you mean?
like we were talking about before.
Oh,
How
just
it's like,
ambiguously, you mean?
yeah, it's like meant to
Right.
like it's just like meant to make you think a humanitarian, basically.
Yeah, if it
right?
doesn't make you think, then you shouldn't be in his school. And it's
Right.
not-
Like, oh, that's another thing is like it's written on the school there that if you don't understand geometry, to get the fuck out or something like that, right?
So honestly, he didn't even really care if it existed. He was just using it as a story.
I think he was using it as an allegory of how when you have a democracy or if you have a democracy, the folly of creating a state full of warriors.
that and like when he was a kid, he lived through one of the worst civil wars between Athens and Sparta, and Plato even jumped in the military for a little bit.
Sparta won.
The Greeks have had their history erased and forgotten a couple times.
Well, that's right.
And
That
so
was weird to me. So they had to reinvent language once or twice before.
yeah,
They reinvent the
they
same
were
language.
beaten so bad that there's no record. So the high priests of Egypt talking to Solon about the Greek history and the Atlantean history was basically like, we keep all these records for a reason. You guys don't know shit.
Yeah,
Here's
the
this.
Greeks have a longer history, but they don't have a record of it because they've just been fucked over so many times. And then
Right.
so the Egyptians are like, you guys don't even know your own fucking history. And that's where that's kind of how I interpret that.
Yeah,
I wonder
Look
why.
at this
I
fucking
wonder.
column. This wall tells your whole history, you
Step
idiots.
inside. Walk this way. You and me, babe. Hey. Def Leppard was quoting the Egyptians. Sorry, it's a terrible fucking joke.
Why Greece, do you think? Because they were successful, so people just were gunning for them. They're like the patriots of.
It's interesting to see from the maps in the documentary. They show like if you see like right in the center of Africa and you see an empire spreading with like their graphics, like it's all turning, the ground is like turning red and stuff. You go across the Mediterranean Sea and all of a sudden there's the Greeks there. So you have to like start fighting the Greeks for their land because they have the best land there.
But Italy's right there.
Yeah, they try
Yeah.
to take over Italy. Yeah, they take over.
Okay, so
a lot
Italy too.
A lot of the northern coasts of the Mediterranean they had taken over, and they warred with them
Okay.
a bunch, and they got beat back eventually. But what ultimately destroyed them was this mythical flood thing. So
Huh.
could have been that younger dry ass. I personally like a younger wet ass.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what it was anyway.
I feel like
it was a wet ass.
They're magical. I used to listen to the album Hysteria going to bed and just falling in love with my crushes.
I just think, is it almost like disappointing for this to kind of match up so well? Because isn't it almost better for it to be a legend and a kind of myth? And
I would rather them figure out how lame it was just so that they have to rewrite things. Because I feel like a lot of our history needs to be rewritten and modernized, basically. Like a lot of the stuff we came up with was from a modern era that is no longer modern.
well, but how would you even, if you found it, if this is it, like how are you going to rewrite history? You still don't know anything.
Well, if you found that civilization, I mean, this documentary, though it's not great, it definitely is just in the right direction of like, we don't even think they had boats back then because we didn't find any. And then they find one.
But how does that ripple effect to us now and make us better in any way?
I would hope that maybe we would uncover all the warring that they did, just for us to take a look at our society and be like, our country has been in war my entire life, and I just have not really, I just forget about it. Like, oh yeah, we bombed somebody. I didn't know we were over there. We're constantly pushing boundaries and militaries all over the world.
I know. I know, and I know you're not saying this, but it sounds like you're saying if we just discovered where Atlantis was, we would have world peace. No one gives a shit, man. It's like,
I know, you're right. I know.
What was the South American, the people who just disappeared that no one, which one was that? There's like the structures are still there and stuff, and they all just like disappeared and no one knew. Am I making that up? The Aztecs did that?
And that was kind of a misnomer, but yeah, because they called them the Aztecs because there was another civilization. They never called themselves the Aztecs, but yes.
But that's probably the same thing, right? It's like they got buried or flooded or whatever, a combination of both, and then they just kind of went out, right? They didn't all die. They just went out
and like, walked away.
I mean, the thing is
moved into an apartment in Egypt.
The problem with like the Aztecs
started diverting all the water because they could control the water, and it just fucked Egypt over. It just changed where the river went.
They just say that there was drought, but they never found the bodies. And
but that's why I think it's just kind of like, well, and also, how would you find the bodies if you don't even know where the place is? Or are you talking about Aztec?
The Aztecs, they're a bigger mystery of what happened to them, because I don't know. Within this documentary, they did find big pits of people that's from like a long time ago that supported it.
Yeah, they kept showing footage of that. I didn't know what that was from, because the whole documentary uses stock footage like crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like, they didn't attribute what war this was to.
They kept showing these skeletons like buried together, and I don't know what, they never said what it was from.
Do you really think that there were civilizations that we lost, that had we not, we would be more technologically advanced right now? Or do you think that those technologies, whatever they were, a boat, were just carried to a new place and we built on them forever, and now we have computers and shit? Or do you really think we
lost technology? Right? That's
you do think that? Sevan, what do you think?
Well, okay, so we talked about this last time. Humanity has been around, evolved 400,000 years ago was the first human. So there's 400,000 years, and only 10,000 of that is history. So the rest of that other time could have easily, I've been a huge human advancement. And I don't know how long it takes for the crust of the mantle of the earth to like recycle itself, but we also talked about that, where how everything kind of moves into the center of the earth and gets recycled eventually. So I think if I'd have to look up if there are any numbers on this, but if there's enough time to do it, I feel like could have been a whole civilization.
Okay.
That
let me phrase it like this:
buried into the magma of the earth at this point. Yeah.
Do you think? Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Do you think that? And I know this is all just curiosity.
Speculation.
Yeah, speculation. Do you think that do you think any of these civilizations were more advanced than we are right now?
No.
We've been to space.
No, unless it proves true that the moon is hollow, which is a whole nother episode.
See, my thing is, I feel like when you look at the even just the bells of old cathedrals and stuff, I feel like a lot of, and sure, maybe I'm projecting, maybe I'm being skewed and indoctrinated by just weird esoteric and fringe things, but I think that there was ancient civilizations that were aware of the universe from the cymatic perspective. I really think the pyramids have cymatic healing properties, and so advanced in making us last longer and being more in tune with the universe. Yes, but does that mean technology to get to space? I think it could.
Well, but here's the thing: space is not the ultimate fucking end all be all of technology. Just because maybe they didn't go to space doesn't mean they weren't also really good at something.
But in my mind, I could believe that some missing civilization may have gone to the stars.
What if they just took another path and they just created transporters? They didn't even have cars. They just the first thing they created was a transporter instead of a horse and buggy.
So I'm
amazing.
If
they did that, hang on. If they did that and they lost, they must be the dumbest people in the world. Because if you have transport technology and then you lose some kind of war,
it's
just transport out, man. Oh no, here comes the storm. All right,
Hey.
well, let's transport.
There's this new guy. He's going to help us out. Come on in.
I think, Willie, if you really believe that, why haven't you devoted your life to the study of sound? And you could be a billionaire if you unlock some sort of cymatic thing.
I think you can anyway without unlocking it, because it's just make it a sales tactic.
I've been trying to find cymatic devices and trying to figure out how to make them, and it's like a lot of them you really have to have either
They
old
probably have 'em
equipment
over
or
here.
money.
They have them over here at that float tank place that Aaron went to.
Yeah.
They have that like machine that you put the headphones on. It's like this weird cymatic therapy thing.
Because
I
I'm
know,
like
but
tone
Willie,
generators
no,
and
no. What are you talking? No, you're talking about using shit that's already invented. If it's already invented, then that's not the answer.
I am going back and starting to learn old school electricity. You know, I feel like it starts with magnetism and
saying, like,
electricity.
Not
But
like just a propeller in a river, because they were a river economy. So what, you don't think they just had electricity coming from the rivers?
I think
Atlantis?
that you could just grab energy out of the air from running water. I've seen a lot of people do that. I don't know how real it is, you know, like people sticking wires into a tree and then like getting a battery to work from or a little generator.
It can't be right. There's no way. There's got to be more to it than sticking wires into a tree, right? I mean, like, is that what they're doing? They're sticking wires into trees.
I mean, I'm just saying there's a bunch of different ways to take energy out of the fields around us. So, you know, I ground every day and we have copper wires in our gardens.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to turn you into the crazy weirdo, but it just seems like you're so into this, but like do something.
We have copper in our garden too.
What's the point of that?
Electric culture.
If you have a
That
coiled
answers it. Thank
copper
you.
wire,
Electric culture.
it can
Got
grab electrons and stuff out of the air and put it into your garden. It like grabs the energy and
because plants like electricity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, listen. I
just wrap the stick with copper
why not?
wire.
It can't hurt. Would you do? But yeah, I wish you would have done it with one and not the other, and then you could see you could weigh that. Oh, so how does it work?
Well, it's hard
have you noticed any results?
No, because it's hard because it's different. Like if you have just a bunch of the same plants, it also depends on where you plant it. So
it's not a real control.
There's too many variables.
It's not a good
There's
control.
too many fucking variables. It sucks. Being a scientist is hard, and like Dr. Fauci's a hero.
He stitched Trump's ear like on stage. You didn't see him, Fauci?
Oh God, I thought you were being serious. I was like, whoa, redemption story. Now what are the Republicans gonna say about him?
I know, right?
We should wrap it up.
Stitch his ear.
he's just there still. He still just hangs around Trump. I guess my mind isn't curious about these things in the way that yours guys's are, and that's why I'm always historically like, why does this matter? You know what I mean? I just don't have that. I just don't care. I hate any time period that I'm not living in. So I don't want to think about it. Honestly,
So no Ren Fair for you?
I'm not into Ren Fairs. I'm also allergic to horses, so
okay,
it makes it tough.
I definitely know that I'm guilty of putting different ancient civilizations on a pedestal, you know, and I'm trying to get out of that, but I want to see how they govern themselves, because we definitely need a better model.
But it must have been easier back then, because like they're just in the middle of West Africa, and like, yeah, maybe they're taking over some other places, but like it's not like now where it's just like, oh, the entire world is talking to each other. Like how are we ever going to get along? That's
and like
nuts.
Facebook groups getting infiltrated, just weird shit like that.
Yeah, well, that I think is kind of funny.
I guess it doesn't really matter if Atlantis existed in the way we thought it existed. The reason why I got into it wasn't because of the science fiction aspect of it.
Wait, you don't have to defend. I'm sorry, that's not.
I'm not defending it. I'm saying
okay.
It seems like it's a glamorous thing and it shouldn't be. And
I guess that's where I'm kind of coming from. Yeah,
and it's like I kind of liked that ride. It was like, for me, it was like if I read Plato, I think I'm just gonna read it as not like a newspaper or a science article. I'm gonna read it as a play or something, or just like this is like a Jesus parable or something,
Right, right.
In that sense, we haven't learned from those writings because we're literally gonna be in a civil war soon.
But individually, you can, right? I mean, like, or is that even possible? Like, as an individual, how would you apply any of that stuff? You know what I mean? It feels helpless.
This is the weird, like, pacifist thing is like, well, if you want the world to be a better place, like, fix yourself. And I like that idea, but it still doesn't fix other things. Oh, someone saw me and took me as an example and changed their life. Whatever. I'm like, yeah, shit's still happening. People are still getting ripped off. Like,
how you could take it though? You could take it as like, well, fuck, if the ancient fucking Greeks couldn't figure it out, well, why would we? And it's liberating in a certain way to be like, it's all gonna crumble. Let's just see. I don't know. That's liberating to me. I'm also pretty fucked up.
I mean, also, this is pre-Rome too, so like Rome also fell. I guess it's the same idea of just like history repeats itself. We always find ourselves back at the beginning. And it's a cautionary tale for today where AI is just going to bring us back to the beginning.
I know.
And we're all living in idiocracy right now.
Get ready.
I'm going into space.
I'm literally wearing Crocs right now. So I'm definitely in an idiocracy. Yeah, what else is there to do but masturbation network anymore?
I don't know, man. Like, it's hard not to be, dude. It's hard.
You picture every third party out there and how just fucking lame they've been, and how
it's too late for that. I gave up on third parties 10 years ago. It's too late.
But
it's too late.
I'm like, could we make a new one that kind of fits where people's minds are of today? Not that I want to do that, but maybe there's
the establishment's too strong.
Yeah, it's done. We're done. We're done for. Just get ready for the end.
People are in line. People want their turn, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, the line is long. But Biden's been in line for a long time.
So get in line.
I don't know why you got to get personal.
I love how
no one was naming names here.
Conservatives are throwing it back at the liberals as if their rhetoric caused somebody to.
Oh my God! Him. Well, everything they do is hypocritical.
Fucking
right?
liberals, dude.
Obviously. All right. Well, get ready for the end, and we're going to continue conversation in some way with our friend Sevan. Sevan, what's the future of the Mars movie? Like, how do people start watching that?
We're hoping that Mars gets picked up for a couple more festivals, so we can show it around and have premieres in different cities, and then hopefully it gets some distribution and it has a wider release. But I'm not sure yet. We just had the New York release, and we're waiting to hear back from a bunch of other festivals right now. So
cool. So
in every city, hopefully.
How would one Google that? Because it's just called Mars. I guess just Whitest Kids Mars.
Yeah, WKUK Mars. Google my name and Mars. You'll find it.
Well, I wouldn't recommend that because then they're gonna have to learn how to spell your name.
SEVANMARS. Sevan from Mars.
Oh, just Sevan. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you don't need my last name. You'll find all my other stuff. My insane IMDb page.
It's just insane.
It's stupid. It's like all Channel 101 stuff.
Oh,
dude,
but I just got IMDb Pro and I sorted it so all my professional stuff is up front.
I did that too. That's like it's worth paying for.
Yeah,
just
it is worth
be in charge of what people see right away.
Yeah,
fuck,
dude. Man. It doesn't matter, you guys. None of this matters. We're all gonna be digging in the dirt and fighting with spears.
Well, I did meet someone recently, and like I IMDb'd you, and I saw that you do a lot of set dressing. I'm like, that's what made me pay for it. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of all my non-director credits. No, I'm not going to.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. Go to patreon.com/RealLifeSciFi if you want to continue listening to us talk about who knows what. With Sevan, it's always a fun, kind of more educated than what we usually do. It's normally some fucking morons that we have on. So who knows what we'll talk about, but I'm sure it'll be fun. And remember that just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.